One of the most important signals coming into our system is the sung vocal. Vocals carry all the important informational and melodic content of sung worship, so it's critical that we get a really high quality signal off the microphone and we really think about the quality of the signal at the microphone before we even get into the sound desk. We're going to think about vocals in two distinct formats. Firstly, a close mic vocal that we might use for a lead vocalist or even a backing vocalist in our band. And secondly, a more distantly mic'd vocalist. Often we use this for miking groups of vocalists such as choirs. Lead and backing vocalists need to be close mic'd because when we're mixing them, we're interested in actually having control of each individual source rather than simply controlling them as a group. This requires a single microphone for each vocalist to bring them all into the desk on individual channels. Typically, for vocalists we're miking this way, we'll use a dynamic microphone. A really good example is a Shure SM58. The SM58 has been an industry standard microphone for well over half a century. The reason for this is because it has such a solid, rugged, reliable performance. And if it isn't broken, why try and fix it? Of course, we don't have to use this standard microphone, and there are lots and lots of alternatives made by all sorts of different manufacturers. Some probably offer us better audio quality, but there's a trade-off with the price and also the predictability of the performance of the microphone. Here, we have a Shure KSM9. The price of this is probably 7, 8, 9 times the price of a Shure SM58. So we're paying a much higher price premium for a high quality microphone. The quality of sound we get off this undoubtedly is better, but we do have to ask ourselves the question, is it really worth that price premium? In church on a Sunday morning, perhaps not. At a high level professional concert, maybe it is. These are the trade-offs that we're always making as sound engineers. Regardless of which microphone we use, the way that we want to actually position the microphone and the technique we need the vocalist to apply is pretty much the same. So let's demonstrate that using the SM58. One of the most important things with vocal microphones is sheer proximity to the source. We know that every time we double the distance from a source, we lose 6 decibels of volume. So there's a massive difference between a vocal microphone placed right up close to the source and a vocal microphone placed down some distance from the source. So it's really, really important that we educate our vocalists to keep the microphone as close as possible and also to keep it a consistent distance from themselves in order to ensure we get a consistent level into the system throughout. Even moving the microphone an inch or less can have a dramatic effect on the volume. If we think about this rule of a 6 decibel drop every time we double the distance from the source, when we're very close to the source, a very, very small change, something like this, will have a very dramatic effect on the level and could change the level by 6, 12 dB or even more. That's why it's really, really critical that we try and maintain a consistent distance from the source throughout the performance. Just a few ideas we can explore include actually having physical contact between the microphone and someone's face. This works very well with female vocalists, but can sometimes be a bit problematic if you have a male vocalist with facial hair, which can grate against the microphone. Another idea is to instruct the vocalist to try and keep their thumb touching their chin at all times. By doing this, they pretty much lock the microphone off at a fixed distance from their face and ensures a really consistent level all the way through. Of course, often vocalists are using microphones with stands, so let's demonstrate how we set our stand up to ensure optimal sound level into the microphone. What we're really trying to achieve here is just a consistent placement of the microphone so that it's really comfortable for the vocalist to stand in front of it without feeling like they need to move around or that they're hunched or trying to stand on their tiptoes to reach the microphone. Any kind of uncomfortability with the position of the microphone is going to lead the vocalist to move around and give you an inconsistent level. I'll demonstrate how I would set this up. We can see in this instance that the microphone is a really nice, just level height with my mouth. It's really comfortable for me to stand here directly in front of the microphone. I'm not bent down trying to reach it or stood up trying to reach it. It's just a comfortable level for me to stand. So naturally, when I stand in front of the microphone, I'm maintaining a very consistent distance. Although this can look a bit imposing with the microphone directly between the vocalist and the congregation, actually, if we were to put it a bit lower, the vocalist is now forced to stoop over the microphone. This isn't good for vocal technique. It's going to be uncomfortable, and they're also going to find it harder to maintain that consistent distance from the microphone throughout the set. One thing I would discourage is the practice of using lapel or lavalier mics, or even face mics to try and mic up a sung vocalist. Whilst these microphones can work very well for a spoken vocal, they struggle to accurately replicate the full frequency spectrum of a sung vocal and also to cope with the dynamic range of sung vocals. Of course, many things in live audio are about compromise, and sometimes we have to accept that what is ideal for one purpose is not ideal for another. Sometimes for the purpose of flexibility of communication, we need to choose the tool that works best for communicating and not always the tool that works best for quality of audio. For instance, we might have a vocalist who wants to actually move around within the auditorium and amongst the congregation during worship. In this case, perhaps a high-quality face mic is the best tool for the job. Although this doesn't deliver the best audio quality, it's the most appropriate tool to meet the functional requirements. Let's talk now about miking choirs. Ideally, we always want to close mic individual vocalists, but with a choir, we often have too large a group of vocalists to be able to individually mic every single vocal. In this case, we're going to adopt a system of distance miking, where we try and use one microphone to pick up a group of vocalists. For this, we might use something like a large diaphragm condenser microphone. This is a Shure Beta27. It's a very typical example, but again, there are a huge range of different microphones from different manufacturers which will do this job. A condenser microphone such as this is typically quite a bit more sensitive than a dynamic microphone. This makes it ideal for miking from slightly further away. It's also more sensitive across a broader range of frequencies and more evenly replicates all frequencies in the vocal spectrum. This makes it ideal compared to a dynamic microphone, which often has a low frequency roll-off. This is helpful when we're close miking, but not when we're positioning microphones at a distance. Many large diaphragm condenser microphones like this will be cardioid or hypercardioid in their pickup pattern. This typically means that they have quite a broad pickup pattern forward of the microphone, but reject sound coming from the sides or behind. This is really important to be aware of when we're positioning the microphone, as we need to make sure that all the sources we're trying to pick up are within that pickup pattern. For a microphone such as the Beta27, typically we should consider about a 90-degree window in front of the microphone and position all of our sources within that window, or try and position the microphone so that all of the sources come within that window. Let's look at a typical microphone position for miking a choir. Using the Beta27 now on a stand, let's look at how we'd arrange the stand in front of a group of vocalists to try and get the best sound. The first thing we want to do is try and get it quite high. The higher we are, the more even the distance from the microphone to any particular vocalist. This means that we don't hear one vocalist louder than any other. We get an even balance of all the vocalists in the group. So as you can see, I'm positioning it probably about 7-8 feet into the air. The microphone is now maintaining a nice consistent distance between myself and any other vocalist who would be stood in a group in this kind of area underneath it. We've also angled the microphone so that the front grille, which is the grille from which the dispersion is coming, is angled towards the vocalists. Don't try and angle the microphone like this, as the microphone is sensitive in this direction, not in this direction or this direction. So what we're really trying to achieve here is minimal distance to the microphone overall, but an even distance between the microphone and all of the sources. We also are just being really careful and aware of the dispersion pattern of the microphone and where it is most sensitive. Be really careful about putting it on the wrong way round. A lot of these condenser microphones will have one grille shaded to show you that that's the front. In other instances, we just have to be really careful and aware of exactly which way the microphone goes. So, if we consider a group of maybe 4 or 5 vocalists, we want to get them to gather on stage and huddle quite closely together. And then we want to position the microphone at a distance, probably a minimum of about 2 or 3 feet, and a maximum of maybe about 5 feet away from all the vocalists within the group. Of course, sometimes we have a choir that's too large and we can't maintain those distances between the microphone and different members of the choir. In this instance, we're going to need multiple microphones, as one microphone simply isn't going to be enough to maintain coverage and get even levels from everybody in the choir. For a choir of maybe 10 people, you might want 2 mics. For a choir of 20 people, we might want 4, 6, or even 8 mics. It depends a lot on the setup, and what we really want to think about is the coverage that we get within each microphone of different sections of the choir. A good way to do this is to imagine that we're splitting the choir into segments of maybe 5, 6, 7 people at maximum. We then simply need to position one microphone to cover each segment of the choir in turn.